if somebody sent me a 5'11" post player, they can't play in the Big 12. Doesn't matter. Like, it's just not realistic. Like, if they sent a 5'2" point guard to me, I mean, rare would that player be able to play at the Power 5 level. Can they? Certainly. Highlights should actually be just your highlights, not every time you scored the basketball in a high school tournament or whatever. Like, highlights should be what plays either show your capabilities or skill sets that are going to transition to college basketball. This last cycle of recruiting in the transfer world, there weren't enough transfers to make teams better. I could care less where they're playing at. I care less what high school you're at. I care less what team you're affiliated with. I just want the best basketball players going to help me win basketball games.
There are basketball camps out there, training sessions, and all of that. But let's change lanes for a quick second. November 21st and 22nd, join us for a female empowerment camp. This is virtual, so anybody can join. All the details is in the link below. That's gonna lay out everything that we're doing. And for today only, you will get a special discount off if you sign up. We'll see you on the inside.
Welcome to the It's Just Different podcast, where we bring on people who have been where you're trying to go and or have helped countless athletes get there. I am your host, Ashley Roberts, former collegiate player. I was told that somebody just found out I played at Texas, so let me add that in there. Former collegiate player from the University of Texas, real estate investor, author, overall serial entrepreneur. Today, we have another special guest entering in his third year as a college coach, currently at Texas Tech. On the women's side, welcome to the podcast, Erik Deroo.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited. You in the office, so I'm assuming y'all are finishing practice?
Just walked up from practice.
What did that look like today? What y'all work on?
No, it was okay. We worked on some zone offense, some zone defense. Hopefully we don't need either this year, but it looked okay.
I got it. Texas Tech. Are you excited for this year? Big 12?
I think so. I think we have a nice roster with great depth, and that's something that we've been working towards in these recruiting classes over the last 2 years, is getting depth in our roster. I think we have a true Power 5 roster this year, which makes us competitive.
Got it. And I want to make sure I'm correct. You're the recruiting coordinator?
So I'm director of recruiting operations. So we still have a recruiting coordinator, and I'm sure we'll hit on that here in a little bit. But recruiting operations is one of my side jobs here.
Okay, just because I'm curious, what's the difference in the two?
Yep, great. And not many people have the two separated. So our recruiting coordinator takes care of everything that goes off campus. So when we go out recruiting or evaluating, she takes care of the logistics of that. Recruiting operations is everything that happens on campus. So unofficial visits, official visits, our prospect days, anytime we host players or teams, I handle those logistics. So she's off campus, I'm on campus.
I love that. Okay. The name of this podcast is It's Just Different. I believe that things are different, whether good or bad, in the youth industry and women's basketball and sports in general. What do you think is different in recruiting?
Oh, different in recruiting. Can you elaborate that question slightly? At my level or just in general?
In general, like, what do you think is different, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think is different in college recruiting?
Yeah, I think the lack of education, which is probably why we're doing this podcast, right? Like the education piece is something that is different, and people get different answers to from different people that are come from different levels. And so I think something that I've tried to do on my own platforms is try to educate within the general space of how players get scholarship offers, to what they can work on in their game to develop to become a collegiate athlete and things of that nature. But if I were, what's different would be the information that people get on the education of the recruiting process.
That's a good one. That's a bar on as soon as we get started. That's a real good one.
Yep.
How do you think, just kind of going off of that, how do you think we can educate parents more to understand, parents and kids, to understand like the recruiting process, what that looks like?
Yep. I think you really don't know about the recruiting process unless you've really been on this side of it, because this side of it sees all the angles, and you have to talk to all the people, from parents to players to high school coaches, AAU coaches, and everything in between. And we're the ones that really make the decisions on how recruiting operates to a large scale. And so I think if you haven't been on this side of the college coaches element, is getting in their mind, which is probably, again, why you're doing this podcast, is just to see
Mhm.
different angles of how college coaches look at recruiting, because we're the ones bringing players onto our roster. And so recruiting really starts with us and it trickles down that way. And so I think asking questions to college coaches is huge within the recruiting process. Taking visits and then asking more questions. I think the only way you can learn is by asking. And there's no bad question. I've
Mhm.
heard so many different questions asked on visits and on phone calls. And new ones excite me because it makes me work and find new beliefs and thoughts within the recruiting world. And so I think being learners and educating yourselves by asking college coaches is probably the best way that I've seen it done.
Yep. So I want to go deeper into that,
Wonderful.
because I think parents hear that a lot. You got to ask questions. Even when, I'm an AAU director. So when I'm talking to my players, I'm like, make sure you ask questions. They don't know what to ask. Like, what are some of the questions the players and parents should be asking?
Yeah. So to me, there's a lot of them. So let me try to narrow some down. You know, I would say the initial process is academics based. It seems very generic, right? But we're going to college for the education background, and so making sure that they have some type of major that your student athlete wants to potentially study, because like that one, if they don't, they either have to find something else or that school is automatically knocked off the list, right? Like if you want to be a nurse and they don't have nursing at that school, you probably shouldn't go to that school, right? So that's like easy question 101. The next is like, what does this recruiting process look like to you? And so, like, when a parent asks me that, I get to share like my thought process on, okay, cool. If let's say a parent asked me that question in July. So, like, I found a player in July. They say, hey, like, what does the recruiting process look like to you for my daughter? I'm going to say, cool. I'm probably going to go see a high school practice in September. I'm going to come see your play probably early November when I have some time off, hopefully during a Christmas tournament. Within that span, you probably need to come to campus. And like I can explain how the recruiting process should look like. And now that gives you a roadmap of, as a parent, like this is what we should be doing, is expecting this coach to come to XYZ what he says, or this is the unofficial visit time where we need to be coming to a college football game and enjoying the atmosphere, things like that. I think what the recruiting process should look like is one that rarely is asked, but I think is one that gives the most value. Um, Additionally, like, what does your roster look like, and or what are you looking for in my daughter's recruiting class? And so, like, if you were to ask me about my 2024 class, well, I only have one scholarship, and honestly, like, it's already taken. And so, like,
Yeah.
I'm done with our 2024 class, and so, like, I've moved on to 2025. But if somebody asks me about my 25 class, I'm going to have at least five scholarships, and I'm going to need a point guard, I'm going to need a shooting guard, I'm going to need multiple bigs. And so, like, that, I think that question helps guide of how many spots are going to be available. So, like, when I'm talking to a parent or a recruit that we're recruiting, they have an idea of like what position I'm actually needing. Other questions that could be asked or have been asked. Let me see. Um, right now, the NIL space is very interesting, especially at the higher levels. This is very top tier question. Is asking about NIL space and what that looks like for each roster. Coaches have to be very specific in how they can answer those. I guess rather generic, because I can't say what is offered to everybody, but I can give a generalistic that what my team's happening with NIL space. But that's like the top tier Division 1 or even higher of Division 1s. But
Hmm.
NIL questions are very valid and open. What does a scholarship entail? And that's probably a pretty generic question in regards to the levels. Like, I played Division 3 and NAI basketball, so like my Division 3 life, I got no scholarships. Athletically, it was all academic based. My NAI stuff was a little bit of basketball scholarship, then academic money. D2, you could get a full ride, but not everybody gets a full ride. And so, like, trying to figure out how you're going to pay for college if it's not an obvious Division 1 full ride scholarship. I think those are great questions to ask. Um, when to take visits is a good one to ask. Actually, taking visits is a great thing. So I think that gives you a handful of thoughts to go. I'm a techie in my own head, and so I would just go to ChatGPT and say, "What are 25 questions to ask a college basketball coach?" They're probably going to shoot some good ones out to you. But to me, like, find a base 10 to 15 questions and then take those to every college coach that's recruits you, and then track their answers and you'll start seeing differences at each place, and that might help guide you where you take your visits or where you start breaking your list down of, when you see people's top five or top tens. I don't think people take into account question and answer enough. I think they see
Mm-hmm.
facilities. I think they see relationships, which is both are great, but I think getting enough questions answered where you can be like, oh, I can see myself being successful here, really gives you a shot at choosing the right fit the first time.
Makes sense. Now, what's your thoughts on unlimited unofficial visits?
Um, Unofficial or official?
Unofficial. Isn't that's what is in place
So
now, right?
I guess they're all in place. You can take an unlimited unofficials and unlimited
Yeah,
officials. So
unlimited official.
yeah, so the funny thing that's not being talked about is the recruits have unlimited officials, but we don't. And so we still have to
Mm.
limit our official visits. So we still get, I think it's 24 rolling official visits. So over to a 2 year period, we can only bring in 24. I think that's going to get pushed to a higher number because of it being opened up to the recruits. I'll be honest with you, not many people are taking advantage of it. I think that's the right thing. Is only top tier recruits are taking more than the traditional 4 or 5 because most of them know. And let's just be honest, what parent has enough weekdays to take off in their work life to take more than 5, 6, 7 of like days off of work, including their summers that they're taking off all weeks to watch July. And so I think it sounds great in theory that, oh, I can take all these official visits, but when you look at it from a parent side, I just can't imagine parents being able to take off that much work to just go on visits when in theory you should have already kind of broken down the relationship piece and the fit piece. I don't know if there's like for every college athlete, if there's 10 great fits
Mm-hmm.
for a college basketball player. The top tier kid maybe. And so you'll see some top tier kids making more than 4, 5, 6, 7 visits. But I can't imagine people at the large scale doing it. So I would say it hasn't bothered us yet because
Yeah.
most people have realized that they only need 2 or 3 to figure out where they want to go.
Yeah. I'm just hoping it's like kids are not just taking visits just to take visits because it's free.
I think I think it's going to be a rarity. I think it will happen, and I've heard it's going to happen in some cases. But I think college coaches are smart enough to sift through that too. And so I think because we're limited, we don't have to bring everybody on an official visit either. And so like we can be as selective on the reverse end. So at this point, I don't see it being a huge wave. I think the NCAA just made it easier on themselves so they don't have to track it for kids.
Ah, I got it. Makes sense. So
Yep.
I want to kind of get into tournaments. We actually met in
Yep.
person in San Antonio. Shout out to Ray Caldwell. It was at his tournament in July. Um, you were there watching, our team, watching a lot of teams. Like, what are some of the things you're looking at when you're at these tournaments?
Yeah, so this question is interesting because a lot of the times people think we're there and we're clearly just evaluating from scratch. In theory, we walk in with um, notebooks and lists of players that we know ahead of time, whether it's from past evaluations or from different scouting services saying, hey, this is the players that you need to go watch. And so, like, at the highest level, like, especially Division 1, like we all pay for different scouting services that give us names. And so that helps me figure out my schedule in the day of the players that I need to go watch.
Mm-hmm.
And so within the evaluation process, there's a whole trickle process of what do I need in each classification, and what type of teams are there. And so like at the event that I saw your teams at, and so just so I don't get in trouble with compliance, we did not have full conversation. We just met in brief because it was
Correct.
July,
We did
right?
not
Exactly
talk. We
right.
did not, it
Yes,
was,
yes.
we saw each
Um,
other.
but to me, like that event, like I was there to evaluate and truly recruit 2 players, three
Mm-hmm.
players max. And then the rest of my time was seeing if I can evaluate the rest of the talent there to see if anybody else could fit on my recruiting list. And so if we want to go straight into the evaluation conversation, the first thing that stands out for me or most college coaches is size. Is if a player is 6'7", they're going to stand out, right? Like if they're a 6'1", 6'2" guard, they're going to stand out. So the obvious thing that everyone looks for is size and length, because those are things that you can't teach, right? The next thing, like 2A and 2B, are athleticism and skill. Like one of those two things, if you're combined with size, will probably stand out. So if you're really tall and really athletic, that's going to stand out. right? If you're really tall and really skilled, that's also going to stand out. If you're not really tall, you probably need a mixture of the two, athleticism, skill, or a ton of skill. There's a lot of things that kind of go into the evaluation process there, but the first thing that drags any coach's eye is size. And then everybody kind of works backwards because not everybody is a 6'3" point guard or a 6'7" post player, right? And so now you have to start evaluating skill and athleticism. And so those are like the initial things regarding evaluations. I have my own like model that I use on evaluating players. And again, I don't evaluate every single player on the court because, again, it goes back to need. If I don't need a point guard in a certain class and that kid's a 2024 point guard, like I will watch them because they're playing, but like I'm not going to go out of my way to spend time overly evaluating if I don't think, one, either they can play at my level, or two, I'm going to need them. It might be in my back pocket of like I might help another school like give a name to a kid, or just sort of like my own reference if they're in the portal later on. But we really go and try to figure out who we can sign and then evaluate from there.
Got it. And would you say that's at, pretty much any level, P5, mid-major, any type of level?
Yeah. The only difference is like at the mid-major level, how do I say this? Every school has like a type of player that they like. And so like when I was at Abilene Christian, like I liked long shooters, and that was for the 1 through 4 position. And then I needed a certain thing back to the basket with my fives. Like every school plays a different system, plays a different style. And if a coach has been there long enough, you can start figuring out what type of players they like at their certain position. So like I think I've been around the Southland and the WAC long enough to have an idea of what Royce Chadwick at Corpus likes, to know what Julie Goodenough at Abilene Christian likes, to know what Aqua Franklin at Lamar likes. Like I feel like I could watch players now. I think most college coaches in our region could be like, oh, that player would be a great fit at Lamar because they're an extremely athletic point guard, and that's what Aqua's always liked, or whatever it may be. And so, yes, it differs a little bit in the evaluation of each player because not every player is going to fit at Abilene Christian within their system. If you can't shoot the three, you're not playing at Abilene Christian. And so, like, if you can't shoot it, like, they probably already moved on in that evaluation process just based off that same tick. Going down in levels, D2, D3, NAI, like, obviously I've never coached at those levels, but I've played at them. And from a coaching standpoint, like, those evaluations are just delayed. And so, like, I have a list of 26s, 27s, 28s. I have one 2029 on my list. There's no D3 in the country that has 27s, 28s, 29s on the list. Like, they have to recruit the masses too many, and they have to sign too many players every year for that to be an importance to them. And I think that conversation is not had enough, that Division I's have the luxury sometimes to recruit younger athletes, but even if you're Division II, which is high-level basketball, like, your recruitment might not start until your junior year at the earliest, if you're truly a Division II basketball player. And I think parents a lot of times get frustrated that their kid's good at basketball because a Division II basketball player is high-level basketball, but they might not get recruited as a freshman or sophomore, and their peers who might just be slightly better, which makes them mid-major player, is recruited as a freshman, and their kid's not. That's hard for parents to understand a lot of the time. But like, those levels and the time and the resources that once you drop below Division I, like, it's just harder to maintain. And then Division II coaches, like, it's hard for them to spend time on freshmen and sophomores and even juniors at times, when in 6 months Division I is going to pick them off, and then they just wasted that time.
Right.
So I think there's levels to recruiting that parents have to be patient. If their kid is good enough, they're going to get found and they're going to get recruited to the level that they're supposed to.
Patience is the word, and
it's
you
hard.
Just said it's very hard. You said all of that, and all my questions just went that I know I might forget to ask. But one thing that you really said that I like what you said was about fit. Certain schools are recruiting certain things. It's not that you can't go there. It's not that you're not good enough to go there, but it just might not be the fit. So I love that you said that, because I think that parents get confused a lot. They might see one person got this offer to this school, and it's like, oh, I'm better than her. But that school might not need that type of player.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I love
or the evaluation that coach had that at that time had that kid better. Because, like, high school kids, let's be honest, are inconsistent in performances. Mm-hmm. Heck, my college kids are inconsistent in performances at times. And so you don't always get the same kid every single time that you go watch him. So maybe coach A saw that same player and really liked him. But the coach at the other school saw a different game of that player and it wasn't the same. So their evaluations are different. And it's like in the summer, like we bounce all over the place, right? And so like if I only catch that one game, like I can't sit here and like make something up. Like my eyes don't lie, right? Like if that player went 0 for 6 from the 3-point line, had 4 turnovers, I'm not stoked about him. But if the next game that I wasn't there and somebody else was, and that kid made 6 threes and had a positive assist turnover, I'm sure that coach is going to like him more than I am. And so, like, parents don't see that either because they see their kid play hundreds of times. College coaches might see him play twice. Mm-hmm. And so now, like, you're judging evaluations that are at different periods, at different times, in different games. And so that plus the sift through of we're sifting through hundreds of athletes while we're traveling, while we're not eating well, while we're not sleeping well. And so we might miss on evals too, just because of all the constraints that we have within our recruiting process. So it's an imperfect model, recruiting is, and we just try to do our best job, right? But like obviously kids get missed from time to time. But I think over periods of time, if players are in the right programs and getting seen enough, most of them will land at the level they're supposed to.
Yeah, level. I do want to get to that. So we've thrown out a lot of different words that parents may not even understand. P5, like what is P5? Mid-major, low major, D2. One, what are those different things? What are the different levels? And what would you say, what's my question? What would you say the type of player fits in each of those levels?
So P5, Power 5, loose term for conferences like Big 10, SEC, Big 12, ACC, like high mid majors thrown around, or at least in our terms, a lot. And so like now that would be like the American Conference USA, Mountain West. Those would be high mid major leagues. Low mid majors at this time, probably still the Southland. The WAC kind of fits in that category a little bit. Like the SWAC is probably a low mid major just in regards to resources. And so like again, those are 3 different levels within Division I basketball, and they're kind of pushed in those niches of categories in Division I. It's basically based on resources. So Power Fives have extensive budgets, extensive staffs, just extreme facilities almost. That would be a Power 5 base school, right? Big 12, mm-hmm. Like every school in the Big 12, incredible facilities, incredible budgets, huge staffs. High and major is on the fence of those things. So probably have some pretty nice facilities, are gaining bigger staffs, are starting to have better travel accommodations. So like most Power 5s charter everywhere, charter flights. Like high and majors are probably in that realm of chartering some games, maybe not all, but some of them. And then low and major, it's facilities are hit and miss. Staffs are probably relatively small. And then travel arrangements are commercial flights or commercial buses, or charter buses. And so like that's the real differences in those levels. When you get down to Division II, again, smaller staffs, smaller budgets, facilities hit or miss depending on the places, things of that nature. And Division III's non-scholarships, pretty small staffs, resources are limited. Again, facilities question mark, depends on where you're at. It's like, to me, like those are the levels. And obviously you have NAI and JUCO, which are different entities in themselves. But to me, like going back to the question of like what player fits in those, a lot of it is the initial evaluation is size and athleticism. Can they athletically compete with the players that are currently at those levels? Meaning size. So like right now, like if somebody sent me a 5'11" post player, they can't play in the Big 12. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Like it's just not realistic. Like if they sent a 5'2" point guard to me, I mean, rare would that player be able to play at the Power 5 level. Can they? Certainly, there's been high level small point guards, but they're just not on every single roster, right? And so like size, athleticism is probably the first thing. Elite skill level is probably the next thing, and it might be the first thing, but like in that general realm is elite skill level. And so one of the first things that I do in my evaluation is what elite skill level will get that player on the court for me. And if I can't define one, it's going to struggle for me to recruit them. And I really, at this point, don't care what the elite skill level naturally is. It's just I need you to have one. And honestly, I really need you to have 2 at the Power 5 level. And so like,
can I stop you right there? What
please.
Is that? Like elite skill level? What?
Yeah, so like for me, and I was thinking about my roster right now. So like Riley McKinney is an
Hmm.
elite shooter, and like I say that in the sense of like she's one of the best in the country in shooting, and that's like statistically spoken, like elite pull up jumper, elite spot up 3 point shooter, and so like that skill level was good enough for Power Five basketball. Like Bailey Maupin, who was a top 60 player in the country, elite multi level scorer, elite playmaker, elite basketball IQ, like and like one of the best in the country at the high school level that converts to the Power Five level. It could be you can be an elite rebounder, you can be an elite passer, you can be um, elite back to the basket if you're a post player. Like the list goes on. Like obviously your traditional skills, elite ball handler, whatever it is. Like those are the skills I sit there and like evaluate. Like is that kid truly elite, or like it's okay if you have good skill, but like I try to figure out if they are elite at that skill, as in like a top 5% in the country or whatever or better, in that skill level. Is like basically my first evaluation beyond the is this kid big enough, in the size.
Got it. So I love that you said that. I think that so many parents want their kids to work on everything. Like you just talked about one thing. This person is an elite shooter. Can they do other things? Absolutely. But
Yep.
they're an elite shooter. And I think it's so key for like kids to, yes, you need to work on all aspects of your game, but be good, be great at one thing. Something that's going to allow that coach to say, okay, this kid can do that. This kid can shoot. This kid is going to be the best. This kid is going to be able to guard the best player on the other team all day long. So that's good. That's a good point.
Yep. Um, I just grabbed something off my desk, and I have never shared this with anybody else, so this might be leaked information for myself. But this is something that I going back to the evaluation process and like parents not really understanding like what coaches look for. This isn't everybody. This is what I do. So I grade every player that I evaluate. That's like I truly need to evaluate in regards to like can I see them playing at my level? And first question is, do they have at least two elite basketball skills? And so at the Power Five level, I need two. At the mid major level, I could have sufficed with one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at ACU, it was if you were a guard, it needed to be probably shooting because that's we lived and died by the efficiency of your shooting capabilities. But at the Power Five level, especially at Tech, like I need two elite basketball skills. My next question is a two-part question: is do they play and work hard? Because there's a difference in playing hard and working hard. So working hard is do you work hard behind the scenes when no one's watching, in lifting and in the training room, on skills workouts and full practices, and then when you play hard, it's do you see that come to light? And most people call that a motor. Do you have a high motor or not? It's like that's a two-part question. The third is can you defend multiple positions? At the mid-major level, I cared about players being able to guard their position. If a point guard can guard a point guard, if a post can guard a post, if a shooting guard can guard a shooting guard, I could live. At the Power Five level, I need almost every position to be able to guard multiple positions. So we don't have to hide you basically. Like, if you can only guard your position or you can't guard your position, then we have to hide you on defense, and now it puts our entire defense at risk basically. The next is do you have a high basketball IQ? Once you get to the college game, teaching happens, but it's advanced teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't teach you every element of the fundamentals of the game in the times that we're trying to win basketball games once Big 12 conference play comes. Like those conversations turn into high basketball conversations quickly. And if you can't keep up, you're going to fall behind. And so like learning as a freshman and sophomore in high school about ball screen reads is essential to being a successful high basketball IQ player in college. The next is they have adequate size and athleticism relevant to their position. Again, go back to the size and athleticism. And the next two are non-basketball related, really, but matter to me, or is do they love the game of basketball? Because what I've learned in my time in college basketball, so this is starting my 10th year in college athletics, as a coach, and if a player doesn't love the game in high school, they're not going to love it in
They're
college.
not gonna love it
um,
in
because
college. Yep.
because you and I both know like the game changes, and the game changes because now it's all year and you're not playing all year. In high school, everybody loves it because in AAU ball, you play 7 games a weekend and y'all are hooping and like there's no practices in between, there's no shoot arounds, like you just hooping, like and like that's what you love. Everyone loves playing the game, right? It's the love of the game that forces you in the training room, that has you lifting, that has you doing all the things to get you to November, that takes you through March, and it's the grind. And the grind is so much different at the college level. If you don't love the game, the hard's really hard. And the last one, are they a good fit at Texas Tech? And that one's academically, socially, all those things that encompass non-basketball relations. So like if you're not good in the classroom, I can't give it to you because now like I have to coach school and I don't love coaching school. Like and that's just my own take. And like same with like if you're getting in trouble a ton, outside of basketball and and we have to worry about that, like you're probably not a great fit because now we have to worry about things that are non-basketball related. It takes the time away from us doing our real jobs. And so like those are the 7 things, right? That I evaluate every time. I really try to figure out if it's a kid that we need to be recruiting. At least that's how I do it. Not everybody does that. Everyone has a different evaluation process, but that gives me a grading thing that I can go back and I always can go back and update and reevaluate and whatever. But that gives you my baseline. And just the advanced piece of that is like I want to sign players that grade at a 5 or above. Ideally a 6 or a 7.
That's what I was going to ask.
So if you're a 7, I want you today because I think you're going to end up being an all-conference player in the Big 12. If you're a 5 or above, you're probably on a recruiting list, but I really want to sign 6s or 7s because like let's talk about a 6, like something that they're missing. Maybe they aren't overly athletic, and so they don't get that one. But they are an elite shooter and whatever. Like there's things that grading system tells me that I need to develop in a player. If like that first question is that do they have 2 elite basketball skills? If they only have 1, then they can get half a point. So like 6.5. And so like now it's to me is like what skill can I take that I need to turn into elite to make them a better player. So it helps me in my development process once they sign of seeing which areas do I need to build. So we have some players on our roster right now, honestly, that are not high basketball IQ. They're good basketball players, but they need to learn the game at a higher level, and that's their only thing they're deficient on my report. So like in my head now is like, okay, so my job is to help them learn the game at a higher level, and so now I need to get them to become high basketball IQ player. And so that process helps me with developing or evaluating talent, but then once I sign them, it helps me develop them.
Love that. One of the things that you mentioned was loving basketball. I see now, obviously, I'm in Texas, Austin, Texas, and that's all you hear with kids. They want to go to Texas Tech, to Baylor, like the schools that they see, but they don't really know the work that it takes. So
Correct.
Walk us through, like, what is it like at Tech preseason, in season, out of season? What does that look like?
Yeah. So it starts in the summer. So we get all of our kids here basically June 1st. And they work for about 6 straight weeks of summer, 2 summer classes that they're in.
You telling me that the kids got to come to summer school? They got to come in the summer?
Right? So they're here when nobody else is here. So only people on campus are men's and women's basketball and football. And so they're here for at least 6 weeks. They help us run our camps. They take classes, and we can work out with them up to 8 hours a week. 4 hours are usually strength and conditioning. That's pretty consistent in our play at Division I level, and then 4 hours of basketball work. And that's an hour a day. Sometimes it's team stuff, sometimes it's actual individuals. And then most of them go home for some period of time for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then we bring them back right before the school starts, and then we're in preseason. Preseason, you get, again, the same 8 hours between conditioning and actual basketball workouts. But there's other elements, athletic training, like, if you have injuries, you have to rehab, things of that nature. And then obviously you're starting school, so it's a full workload of school. Most colleges have study hall requirements. It's different, at every level and every place, like how much study hall hours you need. That's to make sure that you maintain and you start off on the right foot, because if you don't start on the right foot, the travel in college athletics is the toughest part, right? And then once season starts, you have 20 hours a week of basketball plus strength conditioning, and 20 hours is just when you're actually doing the activities. That doesn't count the time that you're in treatment, that you're doing, like all the additional things. Like we count our film sessions as part of the 20 hours, but like there's additional film sessions, like all the things. At the higher levels, you have training table, which is where you eat with your team, or you eat with the athletic based departments. It's like we basically tell you where you're eating breakfast and lunch every day, in addition to your treatment time. It's like all of our players have schedules that are full every day, because we're basically telling you what you got to do every single day at the college level. That's the love of the game that people don't understand. Is like a lot of times it feels like you don't have your own time, because like of so much is taken from you in regards to how your life is scheduled. And I think people I think people see on the court performances. It's like when they see Texas Tech versus Baylor on ESPNU or whatever it is, like they see that and they want to be a part of that because it's a great crowd, a great environment, and that's the high level of basketball. It's so much time to be able to get to those games that people struggle to fight through. That and like, let's just call it how it is. Not everyone has the most successful career in their eyes when they get on the court. People don't realize that not everyone can be an All-American. Not everyone can be all Big 12. And just because you're a first team all district in high school doesn't mean you're going to be a great player at the college level, whatever level that is. And I think that's the conversation probably turns to mental health pretty quickly in that conversation of realistic expectations for yourself in combination of your work and your actual abilities, because some people are just better and some people are just built stronger. And like sometimes you can work as hard as you want and you're not going to be as good as that other kid. And people aren't willing to have those conversations, which makes college extremely difficult. That plus your academics are that much harder and rigorous because of the level of education you're getting. And so it's tough to be a college athlete. And like it strains on you a ton. You're maturing as an adult. You're on your own for the first time. So you're doing laundry. You have to take care of yourself that, your parents kids don't automatically do. It's the transition from a high school senior to a college freshman. There's not many tougher transitions in life than that, right? Like it could be graduating college and turning to the real world, but like that first transition of high school senior to college freshman, you learn to buck up real quick.
Definitely. Definitely. I feel like it's just a different pace every time. Like, so I went
Yep.
JUCO first. I actually went to South Plains, and
Yep.
from high school to JUCO, I'm thinking, and I want to talk about JUCO in a minute. At that time, I knew nothing about JUCO. I didn't even want to go JUCO. I just went because my AAU coach that passed away, I had tore my ACL in high school, and I had some D1 offers, but I knew that I could be in the Big 12. So he called me Ash Mama. He's like, Ash Mama, I think you should go JUCO. And I didn't want to go. It's not for me. I thought it was for kids that wasn't good or kids that didn't have good grades, honestly. But so, long story short, ended up going there. And I thought it was going to be easy. I was like, oh, it's JUCO. It's going to be easy. And I was in for a rude awakening. And then once I finished that, I'm thinking, okay, I got 2 years of college under my belt. I'm experienced. Got to Texas, and that was probably the hardest thing I've ever transitioned to because it was like I was starting over again. It was like I was a freshman all again. So I definitely agree with that. And I know one of the things that I miss that I didn't think I would miss is having a schedule. Like having something laid out for me where I knew I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, and I was done. At that time, I was like, I need my time back. I need some free time. Now I'm like, I'm grateful for that schedule.
Amen to that.
Definitely grateful for that schedule. So it was definitely came in handy. Yes, we have merch available. Be sure to check out the site. It is justdifferentpod.com. Send me something you might like. All right, back to the episode. One of the things that we were just talking about, obviously we went into tournaments and what you were looking for and things like that. And one of the things that you mentioned is at the end of the day, everybody, you're going to miss evaluations. You're going to miss some kids. And to me, that's where highlights come in place. As us directors, when we're talking to different coaches, most times the first thing that comes out is send me a highlight, send me something. And kids are making highlights. What should they put in their highlight tape and how long should it be?
Yep, it's a great question. I love answering this question. So I think I have a unique take on highlights, but I believe that this is the most accurate way you should do it. So highlights should actually be just your highlights, not every time you scored the basketball in a high school tournament or whatever. Like highlights should be what plays either show your capabilities or skill sets that are going to transition to college basketball. The max 3 minutes, max.
Mm-hmm.
I would love it to be more like in the minute and a half to 15 range. And I'm going to explain why. Coaches are just like anybody else. Their time is valuable to some degree. Their attention spans aren't forever. And here's the note that nobody says out loud, but I truly believe is I would rather, if I was a high school athlete right now, send out a minute and a half highlight of my best stuff, high levels like skills that I'm showing, and cut it. And I explain that because everyone that sends me an 8 minute highlight video, now I just see every time you score the basketball, and now I have 8 minutes to pick apart your game and why I shouldn't recruit you. If you send me in a minute and a half and I'm like, oh, this kid's got something, what do I have to do? I now have to follow up with you and ask you for either more highlights or your schedule to come watch you play.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone wants to dump everything on their highlight video. And now I get to fully evaluate you and make a decision without even having a conversation with you. And so for me, when you send a shorter highlight video, I now have to follow up with somebody in your party saying, hey, I need to go watch them play because the highlight was interesting, right? I literally just happened 2 days ago with a junior college kid. Junior college kid posted highlights. It was 45 seconds. I'm literally going next Wednesday to this kid's JUCO because they intrigued me enough. But if they would have put out a 5 minute one, I'm not sure because I would have had my full evaluation done. And if I would have picked them apart enough, maybe I didn't like them. And so, like, if I'm a high school kid, the shorter the better. But people haven't really figured that out yet. But my next piece is your first play needs to be a banger. Like, the first play is the best play that you're going to put on the highlight video. Fact. Because if the first play is you making a free throw, which happens all the time,
Really?
I'm turning it. I'm turning it off. It's gone. If it's you making a layup in transition, it's off. Sorry. Like, I want to see your best highlight ever because it's just like TikTok or a social media. People just scroll on. So, like, grab my attention immediately, first one. The rest of the first minute need to be college level skills that you showcase and the skills that you believe will transition to you being successful in college. And the remaining 45 seconds are this whatever highlight. You made a great play, whatever, but like you don't do all the time because like you don't have to make dime passes all the time because you're an off guard or whatever. Like, but still like that you have advanced skills. If it's not that, don't put it on there. That's just reality. So yeah, a minute and a half to 2:15 would be the cleanest. 3 minutes if you're really good, I guess. But I would rather, here's the additional take, make more highlight videos. So instead of putting all of them together that take up 6 minutes, make 4 highlight videos and then put them out every few weeks. And so like give somebody else to look at you differently. And then you get to, then I scroll to the next one and I watch you again. And now you have me on social media platforms. Anyway, you got me on a pedestal there. That's my answer.
You got excited about this highlight tape. Parents,
Yes.
players, that was the gem. That was the secret to creating the highlight tapes. No more 4 minute, 5 minute, 6 minute. Please, no more. Don't do it. Now, kid has created a highlight tape. Kid has played in every live period. Coaches have seen or not seen. And then let me back up. They've played all live period, every event. Some coaches missed out on them. They created the highlight tape. Now the coaches want to see them in person. Now we got to wait. And the kid is not really getting recruited. You got the transfer portal that has also come into play. Do you feel that the transfer portal is affecting high school athletes?
Yes.
How can they? Go ahead.
Yes, and the long pause was intentional because the answer really is yes for now. And it was just an unfortunate time period that the transfer portal changed from transfers had to sit out a year to they could play immediately, right? And so now, like, players have a slightly more freedom when they transfer because they're going to make that decision quicker because now they don't have to sit. The second piece is that coupled during the time of COVID, where there was an additional year granted to every college athlete. So those two things happened at the same time, and so it blew the transfer portal out of proportion. Now, in about 18 months, the COVID years have ended, and the next cycle of recruiting it will over. And so now you pull back a whole recruiting class that's no longer in the portal, which is probably a good thing. Um, and now people are seeing within the transfer world that the grass isn't always greener. And so
Mm-hmm.
this last cycle of recruiting in the transfer world, there weren't enough transfers to make teams better at the highest level. Like
Mm-hmm.
people were reaching at the highest level on kids that probably shouldn't be Power Five, and like that happened at every level, and so that forces college coaches to go back to high school recruiting. And so I would imagine this is my this taste on it is high school recruiting is going to take an upshift over the next 18 months because everyone this offseason realized there wasn't enough transfer. Like everyone saw the big ones that landed at LSU and whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
there's not enough of the big ones to make a splash at every single school that makes us go back to high school recruiting. And so, yes, it has. I think in the next recruiting cycle, as in the next three classes, it's not going to affect it as much. Everyone's going to go back to the places that they were supposed to.
So after the 24 class.
Yes, I think that's the last. Like, I think the 24 class. I think everyone's settling in because I think I've seen it. I'm watching it. Like, I'm watching college coaches struggle to find 24s, and they're going to have to settle with some transfers, which means the 25 class is going to get hit hard because everyone's going to want 25s. I think that's where it's going to recycle. 24s are going to land mostly where they're supposed to. 25s, high school kids are going to be needed again at
So
at higher level than they have been.
yeah, so the 24s that might be on the verge of they could go D1, not really getting the interest because a lot of the D1s are searching in the transfer portal. Do you think that they should go JUCO or should they hold off?
I'm never for holding off. Never for that. I'd rather you have a home than not because when you hold off long enough, you end up with no home.
That's a good one.
I Yep. Here's my take, and this is me being a parent. I want my kid to have a great experience and a great education. To me, it's not D1 or JUCO. It would be if they have a great Division II offer that they would love and it pays their bills and they're going to have a great experience because they should have gone D1. But if they go D2, that means they're going to play. That's a positive. And that's how I look at it. And so my parenting head is like my kid needs to go Division II because it's still a great opportunity for them to continue their basketball career at a high level and get their school paid for. And so what am I fighting for? Like now I'm let's be transparent here. Now I'm fighting for my ego.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yes.
And so
Yep.
like so I've removed myself because I'm in college athletics. If my kid doesn't have a Division I offer today or next week or in 2 weeks when signing period is for this upcoming class, but they have Division II offer sitting on their lap, take the Division II offer. And not to I'm gonna play really well at the Division II, go to the portal and go up. No, because you earn the opportunity to play Division II basketball. You should have a ton of pride in that and lose the ego and realize that the college coaches have spoken at this point. Like the evaluations say that you're a Division II basketball player, and that is great. Like you're the top 4% player in the world if you go Division II basketball. Like take advantage of that great opportunity and check the ego at the door because like
Mm-hmm.
you did all the things to earn the Division II opportunity. It's not less than. So that like to me like if you want to go JUCO to prove everybody wrong and go Division I, I think that's more than fine. But I don't think it's because coaches are waiting for transfers anymore. I think that cycle's a little bit over unless they have one scholarship. Like
Yeah.
if a coach has 3 or 4 scholarships and they're still waiting, like it's not coming. Let's just be real. If they have one, I could see, and like I'm gonna tell you why one's the important number to me. Um, a lot of coaches hold one scholarship if they need it for a mid year kid. We've signed 2 mid-year kids in the last 3 years here at Tech, and they've both helped us. Like that, like we're going to bring a kid in mid-year this year in January. We're anticipating, and so like when college coaches hold one scholarship, it's because they're hoping or saving it for a mid-year transfer. and that's it. So that's someone that could help in that fashion. That also is probably going to change here shortly too, because what's happening on the back end of college basketball is the NCAA transfer portal window, and so like what I just said might actually dissolve here shortly. But there's a transfer portal window that a lot of people don't know about either. So once the NCAA tournament is announced, like the field is announced, from that day, you have college athletes have 45 days to enter their name into the transfer portal. That's the window. If they enter the transfer portal outside of the window, they have to sit. And that
Is that
conversation's not
new?
happening up either. It happened. They entered it last year, but it fell into play this past March. Yeah, but it was 60 days. And so they pushed it to 45 for next year. Again, the education piece that we're educated on, but especially college athletes are not. And so that's a piece that's not being talked about enough.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So if it's after the 45 days, they will have to sit.
Correct. As long as if they're a grad transfer, they will not, because that's still. But if they're an undergraduate transfer outside of the 45-day window, they will have to sit the next year or apply for a waiver, and waivers aren't getting approved anymore.
Got it. And when you were talking about mid-year transfers, is that like a JUCO kid, or that can be any kid?
In the past, it's been 4 years, and so again, like I might have just dissolved my own answer why people have held scholarships. So basically, like that's what's happened in the past is like kids have entered the portal in December and then
Mm-hmm.
like started that semester in January. So not as much JUCO, very rare in JUCO because of eligibility issues, but it'd be more of a Division One transfer at midyear. But that's probably going to be slowed up because of the window now.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. One thing that I definitely want us to talk about, I don't know how much you obviously can talk about or want to talk about, but I think that one of the misconceptions that I've seen being in AAU is that parents think that they that they need to play on a circuit team to get recruited. And,
Yep.
circuit meaning Adidas, Under Armour, Nike. Am I missing one? No, those three.
Right. Those are three. Select 45, then
Yeah, I guess you
the
could say
the
select
outlier there
40
too.
now, elite 40. But they think that you have to play on a circuit to get recruited. What are your thoughts in general? I'm kind of asking a generalized question. What are your thoughts on that? Playing on an independent team versus playing on a shoe circuit team? What are your thoughts?
You know, I go back and forth on this a ton. When I was at Abilene Christian, that same question was asked to me, and I did my own personal research and looked at every one of the kids on my roster. So at Abilene Christian that year, I had 13 kids on my roster, and 7 of them were independent. That means only
Wow.
6 were on the circuit. At that time we'd just gone to the NCAA tournament, and so over half my roster at Abilene Christian at the time were non-circuit independent team affiliated. Moving on to Tech, I got to try to sit here and look at the same situation. At the end of the day, is that kid good enough to play basketball at this level? Yes or no? If they are, I could care less where they're playing at. I care less what high school you're at. I care less what team you're affiliated with. I just want the best basketball players going to help me win basketball games, and that because you're repping a Nike team doesn't mean you're going to get an offer from me. Like just because like I need to evaluate you just like I just told you my evaluation process, whether you're on the Nike circuit or Adidas or independent, like you're either good enough or you're not. And so those circuits give you the ability for exposure at the highest levels. So if you're a Power Five basketball player and you play on one of those circuits, like all the Power Five coaches are going to see you. Fantastic. Here's what people don't have the conversations enough is when you play on those circuit teams, you play all over the country. You look at the tournaments, they are all over the country. The negative to those tournaments being all over the country is everyone that's low, mid major, and lower basically push themselves out
Mm-hmm.
because let's say you're from Texas, right? And like the Adidas circuit this year had an event in Omaha
Mm-hmm.
and Rock Hill, South Carolina, right? If you are not a Division One basketball player, the schools recruiting you or that want to recruit you from your region will likely not be able to afford to be there. So you just missed out on opportunities to play in front of the schools that will actually recruit you, which are Division two, Division threes that probably need to stay local for the tournaments that they're evaluating. So that's how you would get more offers is actually by playing on a non-circuit team for low level kids. So people look at the circuit like, oh, that's how you get offers. Well, no, like that's where the top tier kids gain more offers because those kids were going to get recruited anyway because they're already top tier kids. Like the circuit doesn't define your level, your skill level does. Because like there's plenty of kids that play on the circuit that won't play Division One basketball. And they're probably sitting there like trying to like figure out where they're going to go because let's be honest, like, they just weren't skilled enough or they weren't big enough or they didn't have the intangibles that Division One needed. Or let's have this conversation. They played at all these tournaments that their low and major Division One teams that would have recruited them never saw them play at because they couldn't afford to go to all the tournaments away. And so like I'm hit or miss on the circuits. I have value with them because obviously at Texas Tech, those are where all the majority of the top tier kids lie within the four circuits that we just talked about. But I'll tell you right now, I have a 6 or 7 post player that never played a circuit game. But we found her, and so we had to go to the one-off tournaments in July to go watch her play, and she's going to be fantastic for us. And so we go and find everybody that's good enough to play here. But again, like if go back to me as a parent, if I was a parent, and I have a 4-year-old daughter. My daughter was playing college AAU basketball. If she wasn't a lock-in for Division One basketball, I would really have a conversation of, does a high-level circuit team make sense for her? Like, or attempt being the 11th player on a high-level Nike team, is that doing her any good in regards to her development and or her recruitment? And I would probably say no if she wasn't an obvious Division One basketball player. And that's no knock on circuits. That's just in my thought process of developing. I would rather my kid play 35 minutes a night or 30 minutes a game and develop their game and enjoy the process and then be recruited by the schools that should be recruiting them. And so again, it goes back to checking your ego at the door.
Yep.
And understanding that like the game of basketball and the college evaluators and scouts, like I won't say we don't miss, but like we sift through so many players that like your offers tell you what your level you are pretty quickly. And that's just my reality.
Yeah. Now because you talked about if you're good enough, we'll find you. Does playing on the right team in general matter? You know, if you got Sally over here that's good, really good, but nobody knows of Sally, how is she gonna get to Texas Tech?
As long as you're playing, like as long as you're playing, either on like, okay, let me pull back. Every good college program is going to go to their regional state tournaments. And so if you don't play AAU basketball at all, but if you go drop 30 in the 4A state championship game in Texas, you're going to take notice pretty quickly. And if I don't know, some AAU coach is also going to be there and pick you up. And then we get phone calls. If you play just traditional AAU basketball non-circuit team, as long as y'all are continuing to play in the April eval, the May eval, the June warm-ups, and July, there are so many scout evaluators out there that if you're good enough, they'll find you. And those are the people that we pay for their services that call us and say, hey, this kid might be good enough, because that's why we're paying them, like for their scouting services, to tell us the players that are available. Every Division One in this region pays for some type of scouting service to give them names of players. So as long as you're playing, someone's going to find you. And I promise you, those scouting services understand that like everyone knows who the Power 5 kids are. And so their job is actually to find the diamonds in the rough. And so that's where it goes back to like, if you're good enough to be found, and we might not be the ones that find you originally, but if somebody finds and calls us, like we always do our due diligence.
Yeah. No, I love that. This has been really good. We're getting ready to wrap up here. Before we kind of wrap up, we've talked a lot about basketball. I follow you on social media, and I absolutely love the information you put out for parents, for athletes, even helping other coaches. Like I think that you do a great job using your social media. We're in the NIL era, and just the power of social media. Like, how can athletes be better at using their social media?
Yeah, so I hit or miss on this one because some people take advantage of social, like because they use it just as a recruiting platform. Some people don't use it as a recruiting platform at all because they just want it to be their space, and that's fine too. If they want to utilize it as a recruiting platform, like or to help enhance the recruitment, they can. The easiest tip would be having your first and your last name as your primary username, because if if you just put your initials or like underscores before all your stuff, when I search you on Twitter or Instagram and it doesn't pop up, I get slightly frustrated because like I want to see who you are and what you're about. Um, what else? Yeah, I love social because it gives you snippets of people, and it helps you base a brief judgment, not in a bad way, of who they are. And so like just from their personality to what they like, to what they're into, and like to enhance your own recruiting, if this is what you want to do, like that's why you post multiple highlight videos, like or you create multiple highlight videos out of your 6 minute one, you turn them into four, because like when I go see a kid play for the first time at the state tournament and I haven't heard of him before, I'm going to go search you on Twitter. And if I find you on Twitter because you had your first and your last name on your user, I'm going to click on you and I'm going to hit media and I'm going to scroll through media and see what videos pop up of you playing. And I'm going to keep scrolling until I don't see, and so that's the advantageous thing for high school athletes is if you have an abundance of highlights, then I can keep scrolling and I can determine if this is someone that I want to keep recruiting. If there's nothing about you, like I think my brain automatically checks like, yeah, maybe they ain't that good. Like I don't know why my brain does that, but it's just like TikTok. You just keep scrolling, you move on. It's like, oh, there's nothing good, so you get off the app. Like that's one way to think about it. Um, you know, people used to DM all the time. Like obviously X has kind of changed how like who you can DM or whatever. But I think that was something that was worthwhile because people used to email and people still email all the time with highlight videos. But I always used to joke is like I delete emails all the time, but I've opened every DM and I've never deleted one. If you DM me, like I read it every time, like regardless if you're good enough or not. But like I'm already on my phone, it's a natural state for me, and so that's where I look at highlights a lot. Is just like Twitter DMs. And I'm gonna say this because this is probably uncharacteristic of most college coaches. I watch every highlight video that's sent to me, regardless if I need you or not, in regards to the class. Like 24s, I don't need 24s. But if a post player right now DM me on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to watch it and I'm going to evaluate you, what you got, and I'm going to send your video to somebody who I think could use you. And that means mid-major, Division II, Division III, whatever I think evaluation-wise is good enough because it helps me with my evaluations. And two, it's my gift to other coaches who don't have the resources or abundance of people sending them highlights. And so, like, I always try to help players because that's the right thing to do, in my opinion. But it helps my coaching peers too. So that's my one brief on social.
Love it. I love it. Love it. Okay. And are those things that you help the athletes at Tech with?
Say it one more time.
Are those things that you help as far as like social media branding? Are those things that you help the athletes at Tech with?
A little bit. Our kids kind of want to do their own thing, and so they've kind of moved on to posting what they want. The positive at Texas Tech or schools at our level is that we have an abundance of resources, photographers, videographers, whatever, and so our job is to give them content. So if they want to post content, they got thousands of pictures of themselves, and so for us, it's brand building. Like there's high school kids that can have a brand or whatever, but like to me, like it's more about showcasing your abilities, especially during the recruiting process and kind of what you're about. And social, once you get to our level, like you're building a brand, because then we talk in the NIL space, right? And so like building a brand, like the first thing you have to build is a brand for your community. So like gaining fans from our Lubbock community would be something that we help our players with, and that's by posting content with them in tech gear and whatever. And so so we have videographers, photographers. So it's a slightly different conversation once you get to this level.
More brand building.
Significant brand building.
And you personally built your own brand up on TikTok. Like it's blown up.
That's done well. That's done well for sure.
How did you like what was the progression of that? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, so I love social. I've always loved social. I have at Abilene Christian, Fresno, Abilene Christian, and Tech have run their socials to some degree. I just let go of Texas Tech social about 5 months ago. But that was something that I've learned over time of how to build a brand, not my own, but a brand in general. And I finally picked up on the fact that personal brand building is relevant. And TikTok in the start of COVID was relatively new and everyone was on it and everyone was dancing. And when I heard that you don't have to dance and you can be successful on TikTok, I took a leap of faith. And very fortunately for me, my first video on TikTok got 150,000 views.
The
And
first video?
that it did. And it was the top three things I look for in a point guard. I couldn't tell you because I probably changed from then. That was 5 years ago or so. But if it would have got 1,000 views, I might not have done it. But I think I had been trying so hard on Twitter or whatever to build, and it took so long on Twitter to build anything. And on TikTok, I saw like any immediate success. I dove straight in, and that has allowed me to become educated in the space because I did dive all in. And when I left Abilene Christian, I was the most followed college basketball coach in the country, men's or women's, on TikTok. And I have no idea where I'm at now because basically when I got to the tech, I let it go. And I still post every once in a while on there. But my job for the last 2 years here was to build the brand of Lady Raider basketball back. And so I think we did a significant piece of that. But it removed me a little bit from my own brand building. And so I still post on Twitter or X almost every day. TikTok has taken a hit over the last 2 years. But to kind of hit on the space of what I have done was I wanted to educate on recruiting. And the reason I did that was I was a Division III and NAIA basketball player with minimal offers. I only played 1 year of AAU basketball, and my parents didn't play sports, and so I had to educate myself on the recruiting process. I found an AAU team. I found a tryout. I had to drive 2 hours to Dallas to try out. I had to figure out what visits look like. I had to set up my own visits. I had to do everything with my parents, my AAU coaches, nothing. Like, I did it all. And what I realized was that's probably every person that was my age trying to figure this thing out. My parents trying to figure it out and help because they had no idea. And so I realized that was a niche that I could take over and I could give educational nuggets from a position that I actually had expertise in, because every parent's trying to know, well, I have the job that I'm literally recruiting. I'm literally choosing why I go to this game and why I watch this thing and whatever. And so that's where I really started hitting was education of recruitment. Because that was what I wish I had growing up in that space. And so my goal was significantly 13 to 18-year-old kids learning the recruiting process. And now it's turned into a little bit of the parents. And now that I'm a little bit older in the coaching space, I've started to look at aspiring coaches because that's a space that I've really enjoyed, is helping coaches get their footing in college athletics.
That's pretty dope. Have you been able to monetize TikTok?
I did early. I how do I say this? Yeah, I did well my first 2 years on TikTok. And not that it made a ton of money, but but I educated myself and it helped me with the NIL space in regards to brand building. And yeah, I still make some money off TikTok, but it's not enough to pay the bills, and that's okay. Right. That was never the goal. The goal was to educate and help others, and then it helped build my own brand, which was great, and that potentially helped me get a job at Texas Tech. And so for all those things, it was worth my time.
It was definitely worth it. We're going to have a TikTok conversation later, one of these days.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
But yes, this has been amazing. I always end the episode with a little bit of rapid fire. So I got 5 things for you, and you just answer. That's really it. You ready?
Let's do it. I'll try my best.
Your biggest coaching pet peeve?
Oh, shoot. When post players aren't set on their screens.
Okay. What makes a great kid to coach?
That they are a great fit in university. It goes back to personality, like education, like they want to do all those things, and they play and work hard. So they're a great fit in the university, and they play and work hard. When they do those things, they're enjoyable to coach, because like I don't want to coach effort and I don't want to coach school.
Got it. Can't shoot but can play defense. Can play defense but can't shoot.
So this is an unpopular opinion here at Tech. I'm a shooter first. I'll figure out how to I'll put you in a spot where you take a charge, something like that. But I would say the rest of my coaching staff at Tech is all defense. So I'm the outlier here, but I'm a shooter first.
We going to get a bucket. That's what you want.
Yes, facts. I'm going to outscore you.
That's it. What is one thing you don't like to see when you go to an AAU tournament?
Parents trying to coach their kids every possession.
Y'all hear that,
That's
parents?
why
You hear that one?
that's why they pay the AU coach and whatever. Like I'm gonna say this. It was a rapid fire. I get it, but I'm about to go to my daughter's soccer game. She's 4, and let's be respectful. Like I'm the only person that's paid to be a coach, and I'm the only one that doesn't say a word the entire game.
That's crazy.
Why? Because I'm not that kid's coach. I'm not my daughter's coach. I'm my daughter's parent. So I stand up and cheer. I clap. I cheer for all the kids because you know what? I'm not the coach. I'm not. So that's my
I
piece.
love it. I love it. Last one. The number one thing every athlete should have to be considered a great athlete.
Oh, you know, I'm gonna say, say that question one more time because I want to give you a really good answer.
The
What
number
do they
one
need to be a
thing.
great athlete?
Yep.
Oh, motor control.
Oh, that's a good one. Motor. That's a good one. Okay. I like that.
Ooh,
Those
no,
are
motor control.
motor
So I'm gonna
control.
so
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 elaborate. Because
so
I just heard
yep,
motor.
motor. Yeah, no, motor control. And so, okay, so this is advanced. Um, like your body, like the ability to control your body
Hmm.
is an advanced skill that you can build as an athlete. Because let's be honest, there's some kids that can run really fast, but they can't move laterally, or they can't move up and down, or they can't change directions. When you have motor control, you have the ability to control where your body goes at all times, and that's an undervalued piece of athleticism. Everyone sees the kid that can jump high or sprint really fast. I see the kid that can control their bodies in all settings.
I like it. I like it. Okay. We started this podcast off with what is different in recruiting. I like to end with the guess. What would be different with Erik within the next 3 to 5 years?
I will hopefully um, be more educated in some type of area that I have limited education in right now, and I don't know what that is yet. I'm a constant learner. I love to read. I love to listen. I love to do all the things, and so hopefully I can learn something that I can develop over time that's going to be different about myself. I would say we've talked about this briefly. Not different about me, but different than I do is I would love to write a children's book. Um, and that's something that is very important to me at some time in my life. And I want to do it while my daughter's young because I want to do it for my daughter. And then what else would be different? Um, I don't know. I hope I'm still at Tech, to be honest with you. And like that's probably pretty personal. And like I think a lot of people see like their careers and like where they can go from whatever. I've tried to stay in stability wherever I've been at and success wherever I've been. And so obviously at Fresno, I was there for 2, and my time was up because I was a GA. I got to Abilene Christian. I was there on 5 years, going on 6, and I thought I was never going to leave. And now I'm at Tech, starting year 3. Oh, at 3 to 5 years, I'm still at Tech because at the end of the day, I think stability and consistency make great programs. And so, like, I'm not a job jumper or job hopper. That's not my goal in life. My job is to help make like successful programs, and I think that's through stability. And so, career wise, I hope I'm still at Tech.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna definitely have to send you both of my books,
I
so you can
know,
check them
I know.
out. I'm gonna have to do that. This was amazing. This was amazing. Please tell everyone where they can find you, and if you could leave a message for parents, for players, whoever that's on your heart.
Yep. Socials at Erik Erik, last name Deroo Deroo, and TTU. So all socials Erik Deroo TTU. Um, Message for parents: love on your kids. The thing that I'm a parent. I'm not the greatest parent of all time. I'm still learning, going through the ropes. But the thing that's undervalued is telling your kids that you're proud of them, that you love them. You can't tell your kids those two things enough, regardless of the setting. I think we are critical and we critique our kids too much. Have empathy and be proud and love them, regardless of the scenario. Um, for players, um, enjoying the game is the value. The process of working hard are the things that will allow you to grow in life. And so when someone keeps you accountable to your work ethic, it's not only for your current state as an athlete, it's for your future work self. And so like there's people that don't make it in career fields because they have a lack of work ethic due to lack of accountability. And so a lot of people take accountability and like punishment from coaches or whatever as negatives, when you turn it into a positive of this is going to help me be an incredible work person in a career field that I enjoy. I think that's the value that people don't look at enough. They actually run from it. And so I think that's where players have the ability to grow in a lot of sense of growth. Is the future self is being developed as they're an athlete right now. I think that's why I love sports so much. Is there's so many things that attain to us as adults. Yeah, that's what I got.
All right, I love it. Thank y'all for tuning in for another episode. This was great. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, do all the things, and share this out. Share this out to 2 to 3 people that you feel needs it. We will be back next week with another episode.